back. WNST, Towson, Baltimore, and Baltimore Positive. We are positively into March Madness, over the hill of free agency, and around the corner from the NFL draft and opening day and all the wonderful spring things. One thing I want to do before we get going here is everybody knows that I'm wearing the Cole Roofing hat and I have the Cole Roofing mug, the Royal Farms coffee in the mug, and I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to show that, which I will. Wise Markets is our newest sponsor. And, I told Luke I had some tricks up my sleeve because sometimes we work sort of early in the day. I need a little something to get me through. Luke, you and I have had a lot of coffee, right? Like, you're a cream in your coffee guy, right? Like, you would have some Wise by Nature, organic, reduced fat 2% milk, right?
Absolutely. Sign me up.
Well, I'm going to pour a little cream in the coffee here and get going. Football over the weekend, I guess the wide receiver thing sort of clears up as more guys come off the board. But more than that, we're one step closer to baseball season as well. I know you're excited about that opening day next week. It's not an April Fool's joke, right?
Yeah, we're getting there. First day of spring over the weekend. That's always exciting. And especially after the last year, not talking the Orioles, just this last calendar year in general. I think there's excitement there, and I know the 2021 Orioles not exactly moving the meter in terms of interest, and I get that. But
wouldn't it be something if they were? Wouldn't it be something if they were good?
Sure.
You know what I mean? Like, yeah.
Well, but I also think, and I've said this before, and you'll hear me say this a lot, I do think there are more and more interesting young guys on this team that have a real chance to be part of what you hope is a special team in a couple years. What you hope is a team that's much more interesting and competitive and contending and making playoffs. That's why you're going through this over the last few years. Boy, you hope there's a payoff when you're talking about that. But just in general, the start of baseball season coinciding with spring, there's always the romanticism that's there every year if you're a baseball fan related to that, but especially this year and knowing where we are with the pandemic and moving in a good direction, and understanding that we're not there yet, but definitely seeing light at the end of the tunnel at this point, compared to where we were 6 months ago, compared to where we were talking about an abbreviated season starting last July. So I think it's exciting in that way. And this is just a fun time on the sports calendar. You and I have talked about March Madness and that fun, and, with the Terps.
Well, it was like the first weekend I sat around and watched sports a lot, right? The basketball was on all weekend, whether it was Rutgers and Alabama, whether it was Abilene Christian and Oral Roberts, whatever it was, it did sort of tickle me as on television, again, as a made-for-television event. Mm-hmm. It felt non-Eddie Feiner, and what that reference means for me.
It was. No question. It was fun. It was really compelling. Loyola Chicago, seeing Sister Jean after a few years ago. It's been a lot of fun. So you have that. You have NFL free agency, which, for the Ravens specifically hasn't been incredibly active, although we can certainly get into Juju Smith-Schuster and how that played out. But, and with baseball, there's a lot going on. College lacrosse. It's feeling, I don't want to say normal because it's not normal yet, but we're moving in that direction. And the NCAA tournament's been fun and very compelling. I thought the first weekend has been very, very good, very entertaining. Lots of upsets.
It's got something for everybody, right? Loyola Chicago, Oral Roberts, Abilene Christian, Maryland at least, for like, hey, I'll take it. It's better than anything else has been. It's better than whatever that fraudulent Stanley Cup thing last year and the NBA, all of it felt like little mini tournaments that were sort of plague time real. I don't know. For me, this has felt like a real tournament and real brackets, and it'll feel like a real thing next weekend. The NFL felt real, right? So we'll get to that in a minute.
Yeah,
but
I was just going to say that.
I should hope that baseball will feel as real as the basketball tournament has this weekend. That's all. That is my hope, that we can, once we start getting shots, and I tried to sign up for my vaccine over the weekend, like we'll get back to something that will make this last 12 months feel like an incident, for all a war, that we lived through, that things can be normal again. And sports, music, all of it. I mean, the Record Theater was open the other night. I got Mickey Coachella on here talking about doing comedy and socially distanced. We're getting back there. Baseball, the beginning of the baseball season could be the beginning of, oh, this is normal. It's a normal baseball season. It's a normal Stanley Cup playoffs. It's a normal Preakness. It's a normal Masters. It's a normal spring for your kid playing lacrosse or whatever, right? Like something that feels normal.
Right, and a lot of that just has to do with the calendar. I mean, last April we didn't have baseball. I mean, we were watching old baseball games on YouTube or. Yeah, right. So, I mean, it's not going to feel 100% normal, and it's going to be a little time for that element. But as long as you can feel like it's moving in the right direction, I mean, the NCAA, they're not having full arenas, but there's enough of an atmosphere where it translates well on TV. It's not rabid. You know that Lucas Oil's not sold out in Indianapolis, but it's enough that it's not that sterile environment. I talked about this with you very early in this, where pro wrestling, WWE, was running shows out of their performance center. They still are. They've kind of taken on like they have all these screens set up, and their fans can kind of log in and watch it remotely. But
it's kind of amazing because Vince always set it up for television. Right. Going back to Allentown, Pennsylvania, it was always set up for tele. It was a TV set. So like Vince was ready to go. I don't know that sports was ready to go. That was the other E in the entertainment part of that it was always made for TV. The NFL made for TV, but still played on the field. Same thing with all these sports.
Well, and that's part of, but with wrestling, even the crap that's a participation kind of entertainment. You boo the bad guys and you cheer the baby faces, right? I mean, so there's some of that with all of these sports. So yeah, that has been lacking. And while I've taken enjoyment in it, and I took some enjoyment out of baseball season last year, but just the sheer fact that they were having a quote spring training 2 in early July, that was weird. The fact that they were opening the season at Fenway Park on July 24th, I think it was really weird. Fenway Park was empty. It was really weird. I mean, all those different elements that we talked about that were so strange, we're starting to eliminate some of those, and it's starting to feel more normal. Watching the NCAA tournament over the weekend, you know me, I'm not a golf guy, but it was exciting to see some of the promos for the Masters coming up in a couple of weeks, rather than the Masters being played in the fall.
A tradition unlike any other.
Yeah, so I mean, we're moving in that direction, and again, it's not as fast as we'd all like. We're not there yet. There's still, some hurdles to clear, so to speak, in that way, and way more smarter people than me can discuss that. But we're moving back toward that, and that's where it's fun. The fact that they're starting baseball season on April 1st, the fact that the Orioles will have some fans in the stands for their home opener on April 8th. I mean, that's what we all want, right? I mean, we want to get back to where we were pre-pandemic. You mentioned concerts and things of that nature. So again, it's not moving as fast as we'd like, but it's moving. Whereas 5 months ago, 6 months ago, 9 months ago, I mean, that was just there was, you're in a dark tunnel and you have no idea when you're coming out of it.
Well, I don't know what tunnel you were in. I was listening to Zeppelin at Earl's Court, so I mean, I was breaking out some, but I'm getting a little tired of the oldies.
I hear you.
I've reached down to my Who in Boston collection now, we're getting to the bottom of I got to get some music in me. So I'm going to be hanging out with some musician buddies here the next couple of weeks just to talk about what they're doing, right? Because the football side of this and the normalcy of you going to games, even though nothing was normal, the normalcy of us tweeting about games and there being injury reports and John Harbaugh, at least for the fans, showing up on these hostage videos on Wednesdays and after games and whatnot. The NFL made it work, and the NFL continues to make it work. And quite frankly, along the backdrop of the Terps or the tournament or the women's tournament or anything that's going on right now, the NFL still rules the roost, right? Like what the Ravens did or didn't do over the weekend still sort of wins here for sure.
Yeah, yeah, no question about it. And I think right now, I mean, to bring it more specifically to the Ravens, I think I mean, some fans are panicking, and all 32 teams have the overreaction, whether it's positive or negative. First week of free agency. That's to be very clear about that. But I think there is some angst. I think there is a sense of okay, for the last couple of years, we've talked about the fact that Lamar Jackson's on a rookie contract, and you're paying your quarterback peanuts compared to what even decent quarterbacks make in this league. And thinking you were going to take advantage of that, and they signed Kevin Zeitler very early Monday morning, the day that tampering, quote, the tampering period begins, and you're thinking, okay, cross that off. See what's going to happen with wide receiver. I think anyone who was informed, whether we're talking about media or even fans, because we've talked about this a lot, expected Matt Judon and Yannick Ngakoue to depart. That was not shocking.
Yeah, if
The
that
fact,
shocked you, you're not really paying attention. You know
right?
what I mean?
Sure. I mean, you can be disappointed about it. You can be concerned about it because you still have to replace the players. I mean, as I always say, you can talk all you want about how you manage the cap and paying for a guy where you're not overpaying or getting a good deal, whatever. You still have to roll out a 53-man roster and play. You don't show everyone your salary cap and say, look how well we manage this. You need the players. But I think anyone who paid attention understood they were going to have some losses as far as at the edge defender position group. And we'll see how that plays out. I mean, I think there's still some interesting veterans out there that they could sign on the cheap. I certainly expect them to draft an outside linebacker, most likely early in this draft. I think they have to replenish that pipeline because Pernell McPhee's not getting any younger. You can only go down the road of re-signing him on one-year deals. This is probably it. I would think maybe next year.
Also, where they're drafting, right? I mean, their draft position in the first round, they've been very good.
Yeah.
Side linebackers kind of where you are at that point. You're not getting a franchise changing anything unless it's Ed Reed, right? Unless you get lucky.
Yeah, I mean, and I mean, luck is always, whether you're talking. I mean, even in the first round, I mean, think way back when. I mean, the Ravens drafted Jonathan Ogden. Ozzie Newsome said Jonathan Ogden. Art Modell, part of him really, really wanted to draft Lawrence Phillips, and imagine what course that set the Ravens on, making that decision correctly. But as far as where they are, I think edge defender. I can't say I'm surprised with that. Offensive line, they've added Zeitler, so clearly they've stabilized the inside of their offensive line. We'll continue to monitor Orlando Brown Jr. You would think if they were to move him, and if they had gotten a deal that they feel is worth moving him, you kind of think maybe the start of free agency. I mean, and we'll see between now and the draft. Certainly, teams could revisit that with them. I don't think it's 100% he's coming back by any means. At the same time, I've said all along they're not going to give him away. So there's that to monitor. But we bring it back to wide receiver, which for obvious reasons, going back to the time that Lamar Jackson was a small child, we're wondering what's going to happen at wide receiver. And it's a fair question. And you look at how Friday played out, it became very evident that the Ravens were in on trying to sign Juju Smith-Schuster. They had an offer out there that was better than the Steelers' offer. It wasn't dramatically better. It was a one-year deal. They did have some incentives built in. I do wonder how likely those incentives were to be earned. But ultimately, Juju Smith-Schuster, who also had a deal from Kansas City, seeing this market, understanding a smaller cap, as we've talked about over and over and over, seeing that the market for wide receivers, I guess, Kenny Golladay and the Giants aside, has not been lucrative by any stretch of the imagination. He elects to go back to Pittsburgh. And I know the Ravens, they were really trying to get this done. And I think as much as Smith-Schuster is another slot guy, and I've talked a lot about wanting to see them add someone that can make plays on the outside, he certainly would have been an upgrade for them. There's no question about that as far as what they do. So there's definitely some disappointment there, I think, with the organization. Not that they're panicked, but they were hoping they could get it done. But I think it illustrates, and this is something you and I have talked about a lot, And it's not, I want to be very clear here. I don't think this is solely a Lamar Jackson thing. I don't think it's really about Lamar Jackson. I think it's the offense in its totality. When you're a low volume passing attack and you're only going to have so many targets to go around. If you're someone like Juju Smith-Schuster, or look at a Will Fuller who signed a 1-year, $10 million deal in Miami, or not necessarily AJ Green, but some of the other guys on this market who didn't get big money, if they signed shorter term deals under normal circumstances, you'd say, great, you can get a guy on a short term deal and you're not going to be paying him a whole lot of money. But the Ravens aren't that pillow contract destination because you're just not going to get the same volume. I mean, look at Juju Smith-Schuster last year, who, with Deontay Johnson and Claypool, I mean, it's clear that Pittsburgh has some other young talent, and that's why it's so surprising that he ended up back with the Steelers. But even
they also want to throw
those younger guys emerging. Well, right, that's my point.
They wake up
even
Sunday
with
morning
those younger
football.
Exactly. Even with those younger guys emerging, and even with Juju not having this huge season like he did a few years ago when he was playing opposite Antonio Brown, he still had 128 targets. He still had 97 catches. He still caught 9 touchdowns. Now, maybe the 9 touchdowns is doable in Baltimore because you look at what Mark Andrews, his touchdown production's been over the last couple of years, but he's not getting 128 targets in this offense. So those guys who have been more receptive to these shorter term 1-year deals where they basically say, I'm going to go here and I'm going to reset my market. The cap's going to be higher next year. It's going to be even higher the year after that. We all saw the TV contract the NFL just rolled out and how lucrative that's going to be. So the cap is going to be not just higher, but markedly higher in the next few years. Maybe not next year, but beyond that, I think.
Well, that's why everybody wants to go get their money next year, right? Yeah, I mean, this is really a weird year.
Right, and that's what makes it even more difficult for a team like the Ravens with a unique offense where you're just not going to have the same volume. Now, you can win, and I'm not saying that it's impossible for them to get a wide receiver, and I don't want to make that excuse because ultimately, could they have offered Juju Smith-Schuster $2 million more than they did and really put themselves in with some separation between them and Pittsburgh, and maybe that sells him because he's getting $3 million more, and then he can also earn some incentives. Maybe that gets it done. But when it's really close, that's where it's tough. And just to clear this out, because some people have thrown this back at me, and it's a fair question. Kansas City was in on him also. So you asked the question, why would you go back to Pittsburgh, seeing playing with a guy who used to be Ben Roethlisberger at this point? I mean, that's how he looked at the end of the season. Let's call a spade. When you could go play with Patrick Mahomes, well, the difference is you're going to be the number 3 option at best in Kansas City with Travis Kelce and with Tyreek Hill. Now, maybe that works out really well. Maybe he made a lousy decision from a business standpoint in that way. But if you're him, and we know plenty of Ravens players have done this over the years as well, so let's not begrudge the guy in that way. If we're going to be fair about this, familiarity, a quarterback he knows that even if their running game improves, they're still going to be throwing the heck out of the football. I mean, they threw the ball as much, I think more than anyone in the league last year. I think, if not, they were top 2 in attempts, something like that. But he knows he's going to get his. So you're not going to have that with the Ravens. And as much as you might say, well, the Ravens have a better chance to win than Pittsburgh, and I agree with you, this is still business at the end of the day for these guys. So that's where he made the decision.
His business is trying to get a 3-year deal for $42 million because he catches some number and the Steelers win 11 games next year, right? Like, well, I mean, it's become a much more selfish game this time of year, right? Like Billick would say, time for pay, time for play, right? Or Orlando Brown just basically saying, I'm a left tackle, show me I'm not, at this time of year, and everybody talking about it. I said this to Dennis the other day. I said, I bet in the building, Eric DeCosta hasn't given a whole lot of oxygen to trading Orlando Brown. I bet we've spent more time, and certainly the clowns up the dial have spent more time talking about it than Eric DeCosta has, other than in the press conference. I mean, I don't know what there is to say on the Orlando Brown thing. There either is or there isn't. It's a pretty quick conversation, I would think.
I mean, I would think so from the standpoint of, give us what we want. If you're not talking about a first round pick, to me, it's almost a non-starter. Unless, if there were a case where a team gave you an attractive top half of the second round, and maybe uh, they're trading a guy who has an expiring contract, but it fills a position need for the Ravens, hypothetically, an edge rusher, a wide receiver, whatever. Could you entertain that? Sure. But anything that's I'm not trading them for a late second round pick. I'm not trading them for a second round pick and a fourth. I mean, that's not moving the meter for me. I care too much about 2021 to deliberately weaken my offensive line when I just basically got a year later Marshall Yonda replacement in Kevin Zeitler. Now you're asking me that I need to replace right tackle. Now they should still address offensive tackle because Orlando Brown's not going to be here next year. I think that's obvious. If he's not here, if he is here in 2021, certainly not going to be here next year, barring something completely out of the blue. So you do have to plan long term, but yeah, I think with that, I'm much more inclined, unless a team's really. I said this to you a couple weeks ago. This is a scenario where if I'm the Ravens, I'm not looking for a quote fair trade. I want to win the trade. A lot of times because you negotiate with these general managers across the league, and you want your deals to work out. You want both sides to be happy. Why? Because then you can deal with that executive in the future. It's keeping a positive business relationship. This is a case where I'm not looking for fair. I'm looking to win this one because I'm in a position of power, and I don't want to deliberately weaken my football team anymore, especially on the offensive side where there's already so much concern, at least from an outside perspective, on having enough pass catchers and looking at that. So we'll see how it plays out. I do think as we get closer to the draft, I think that's certainly a time where deals can be made. And but at the same time, all these teams that we've talked about as potential destinations for him, they also realize that, one, they don't want to give up a draft pick given this environment of where we are and just valuing young players and knowing they're cheaper. But also, you give up that draft pick and you've got to sign them to a lucrative deal too. It's not as though I mean, I would think Orlando Brown is, not that he'd hold out, but it would very much be a case of, if you're not giving him a deal at the moment that you execute that trade, then you put yourself in a position that Bill O'Brien put himself in with Laramie Tunsil last year, where basically it's like, all right, you have all the leverage. Here's the check. Fill it out. And we saw what happened. Laramie Tunsil got
I
$22
really
million.
wonder how many teams think Orlando Brown Jr. is a game-altering left tackle.
And that's fair. And that's fair. Yeah, I mean, I think, look, he played really well there last year. I think
in this offense.
Well, but I think there are teams out there that believe that he can be, that might even say, yeah, I think he's good. I think he's a good left tackle. Do they think he's Jonathan Ogden, though, where you're trading a first-round pick and you're having to give him, I don't know, let's say top 3 left tackle money? I mean, he's made 2 Pro Bowls. If I'm his agent, I'm asking for, some level of close to top of the market. I'm asking for close to what Ronnie Stanley got, at least, if I'm his agent talking to Orlando Brown's hypothetical new team. So, that's where you get into the complications of, first of all, executing this deal, if you're the Ravens, getting what you want. But if you're the team that's trying to acquire him, understanding that the price to acquire him is not cheap, but also you have to pay him right off the bat.
By the way, you just spent 3 minutes and 49 seconds talking about this, and I think that's 3 minutes and 49 seconds more than Eric DaCosta has. I mean, I'm being honest with you. I just don't think it's a massive issue in the building right now. He'll come back, he'll play angry, he'll play well, he'll sign elsewhere next year, and maybe win a championship here. He's a good soldier. His dad was a good, like all of that. I don't, unless he went in there and stomped around like a toddler and said, I won't come and play, and I'll start a snit out. And so unless he's really that guy, if he's that guy, then maybe they would deal him for a low second to get rid of, you know what I mean? Just to say, what? We had Earl Thomas here last year. I'm not saddling John with that over a draft pick. Let's move on.
Right.
Instead of 16 bad weeks, let's just, let's let him go play for the Jaguars or the Chargers or something,
Right. And he's never, I mean, even with this demand that he had.
Again, I don't think that's the
you know,
case, by the way. That's why I think he'll play.
Right,
And that's
exactly.
why I don't think Eric is giving it a whole lot of credence.
Well, and here's the thing. It comes down to this. And Mike Garafolo reported this, not terribly long ago. His representation is seeking, he's they're talking to other teams as far as potential trades, and basically the Ravens have told Orlando Brown and his agents,
come back
hey,
with a one.
Go talk to other teams. See if you can get a first-round pick for him, whatever it is. So from that standpoint, you're right. I don't think the Ravens, put it this way, Eric DeCosta didn't spend the first week of free agency being on the phone trying to trade Orlando Brown. It's very much a case of, hey, go bring us an offer, and then we'll talk about it. In the meanwhile, you're under contract. You're our right tackle. We're not going to close the door on bringing you back or on trading you. We'll listen. If it's something that makes sense, we'll do it. So that's why I say, I don't think it's.
But it's very, very hard for him to ever sign here as a right. You don't want to give him $80 million to be your right tackle now. He has stated very publicly he's disenchanted with the position.
Yeah, right.
Ideological position of right tackle.
Well, and that right there is why you don't say it's 100% that he's going to come back. That right there, because this is a depreciating asset that's going to be gone after this year. So if you can get a first-round pick, and you like this, and part of the issue, I didn't mention this. We mentioned it before, but this is pretty good. This is considered a pretty good offensive tackle draft class as well. So yes, you can point to the Ravens saying, okay, they could draft their replacement, but all these teams are saying, well, we could draft our left tackle and not have to give up our first and a monster contract to do it. So it's not 100%. If I had to handicap it, I still, at this point, my gut still feels, much more that he's going to be back, but that can change, and that can change quickly. All it takes is one team to get desperate. And certainly if you don't have a left tackle, and we saw this for years, trying to replace Jonathan Ogden, it was Jared Gaither, and then Michael Orr, and then Eugene Monroe, who looked, they paid to be their franchise left tackle.
Ja Reed.
Yeah, there's all these guys you can point to. So then once they finally got Ronnie Stanley, you hold on to him.
Hey, you didn't mention Bryant McKinney.
Oh, yeah. Well, but Bryant McKinney was a stopgap. But you're right.
Well, you're not out after midnight.
Right. That's still one of the all-time best lines. In fact, that's what I tell people in my my circle of friends and family and everything. Yeah. You always hear that expression, nothing good happens at midnight, and famously Bryant McKinney, it was at the Super Bowl in Minneapolis, wasn't it?
Oh,
I think that's when he
was outraged.
Yeah, and he said, "Hey, I've been out after midnight plenty, and I've had lots of good times." So, kind of gives you a little peek into the life of Bryant McKinney. But no, he was one of the success stories.
Dude, I was the only one on Radio Row with the Stones to look at a 6'9" Bryant McKinney and mention the party boat in Minnesota.
Yeah,
that's a lot of relationship there, Luke. So for you to mention left tackles and not mention Bryant McKinney, I had to get in on it. Did you mention Michael Orr, by the way?
I mentioned Michael Orr. Sure.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Just checking.
So, but no,
well, there were a lot of names.
But the point is, that was a journey for close to a decade of guys that start, stop, and first-round picks, and guys you paid like Eugene Monroe, and then you find out, no, this isn't what we paid for. So once they got Ronnie Stanley, you hold on to that. So we know how important that is. So if you are the Ravens, yeah, you're not eager to trade Orlando Brown because, oh yeah, Ronnie Stanley's coming back from 2 ankle surgeries also. Let's keep that in mind. And who's your backup left tackle? Your right tackle. So, but at the same time, with everything I just mentioned, that's why if you are the Ravens, you're not going to close the door on the possibility of some team out there getting really desperate and saying, you know what, we need a left tackle and we don't trust the draft, or maybe it's after the draft, or maybe we get into the spring and some team's left tackle tears his Achilles, or you never know what's going to happen. You can benefit from someone's desperation. That's where I leave the door open for that. But again, it's not something I'm going out of my way to make my football team worse on the offensive side of the ball when we're already talking about wide receiver. And I suspect we will continue to talk about wide receiver, at least through draft weekend, and I'm sure beyond that.
Baseballs, footballs, basketballs, a little horse racing. You got a Masters reference into this one. Feels like springtime. You can follow
It's
Luke,
fun.
Baltimore Luke. He's out on Instagram and Twitter and Facebook and all of those places. Together, we're out at WNST, now at BaltimorePositive.com. Again, big shout out to our friends at Wise. By nature, this is the milk that I'm using right here in my Royal Farms coffee, in my coal roofing mug. I'm going to get more hats around here from Dennis and from some other friends as well. So we have more props around here. I'm going to call it the honorary Bobby Nick prop box as I start to stand and move around. Big shout out to my friends at MOI as well for moving my desk and moving things around and making us better. We're up on opening day next week. Lots and lots of WNST Classics. So you'll hear from Earl Weaver and Frank Robinson and Brooks Robinson and Mike Messina and other Hall of Famers here as we get ready for the Orioles and the Red Sox and hopefully a real opening day. That's why the sky is orange. We are WNST.net, AM 1570, Towson, Baltimore, and we never stop talking Baltimore positive.